and we can see
Okay.
you.
Okay. If you can also give me permission to my sharing, that will be great. Can you see my screens?
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So in the next probably about 25 minutes, what I'd like to do is talk about low code apps, why I'm so excited about that, and then walk you through how you can use Azure AI on with AI Builder. This is the agenda. A couple of weeks back, I delivered on another conference on the future of software development by 2040. And I've been researching for that talk for a couple of months. And what I found out, the future of software development is really exciting. And in a summary, what's going to happen is the number of developers, or it's not traditional software developers, it's more citizen developers, it's more business users, it's more management. Each and everybody is going to develop, like the earlier saying, every company is a software company. Now, in the future, it's going to be everybody is going to be generating software in one form or other. When we change a setting, that itself could be a new application that could be generated in the future. So that's all going to be possible with no code. We are still not there. There is still some amount of code you have to write, but pretty much today, all these low code platforms, including Power Apps, you can write a lot of business applications, and we'll see some samples during the course of this talk. So that's why I'm very excited about this. And we'll also see why you should care about low code during a pandemic. We are all living through a pandemic and doing these things virtually. So you might say, Venkat, there's a lot of things that we have to worry about. Why we should worry about a low code environment? We're already programming in .NET or whatever is your platform. Why we should look at a new platform? So we'll see that. Then I'll try to convince you, the professional programmer, why you should look at Power Apps. Then a little later, what is Power Apps? What is AI Builder? And we'll see some demos. So low code, this is one of the areas that's growing really, really powerful. If you haven't seen the amount of growth that's happening, I'll also show you some more data a little later. This is an area in software development that's growing phenomenally. It's about $6.7 billion this year. And that's a little old data. With all this pandemic, I expect this data to be more. And next year, it's going to grow by 15%. And you can imagine at this rate of doubling, another 4 years, 5 years, look at the rate in which low code environments like Power Apps are going to grow. When I say low code, the amount of code that you write is very, very less. In Power Apps, most of the time you write what is more like Excel functions, nothing beyond that. And that's going to grow. And the next thing is, like you said, like I said earlier, why you should care about in a pandemic. This is a picture, very scary picture that's taken in around March end in Times Square in New York, where all the lockdowns came. And this is something we wouldn't have imagined. And what happened here, one of the large retail chains in the US, which has thousands of stores across US, like everybody else, had to shut down the stores, like in New York and other metropolitan cities in the US because of the lockdown. Now, what happened? The company wanted to take care of the employees, not send them home or fire them. They said you can be on bench, and when there is requirement, you'll be called. Now, the challenge is, earlier, though the company had a job roster, they were limited to the top HRs and not to the individual managers in a store. Individual managers in the store could only see their employees. Now, what happened is many of the metropolitan stores were closed, the suburban stores were open for some time, and the virtual sales kept on increasing for this retail chain. And there's also virtual store handling, customer support, delivery, and all that. But employees were in bench, but there's no coordination. So one store manager in a day, again, I highlight, with Power Apps, picked up this common roster from the organization and was able to write an application that he then could share it the next day. And by the end of second day, all the store managers across these thousands of stores in the US for this retail chain was able to look at all the employees in the company. And this was in the corporate data. So this was not outside the firewall or anything. This was in the corporate data. Now, because of this, the managers could actually see, oh, the New York store employees are available, but I could call them in a suburb or I could call them in a virtual sales. And that's how they were able to manage this and keep this employees in the bench also available. And just with Power Apps, by a store manager, not by their IT team, in just 2 days. And if you could have guessed, the retail chain was T-Mobile. And mobile became extremely important, and a lot of people were buying more mobile, but they were able to handle this demand even though stores were closed with Power Apps. And you can read that case study on the Microsoft website. There are a couple of case studies on pandemic, and this is another one that I found to be really interesting. This is one of the world's 500 largest company called Bulor. They are into logistics and shipment, and they have to write an application in the stringent test that's now going on. They have to take a photograph of the containers and then figure out all the information in the container. There are a lot of applications like this, but they wanted to write something quick and they could use Power Apps. And you will see in the right hand side how they were able to read the number, the model, the picture of it, so on and so forth pretty quickly. So first one was a quick and dirty application they could write in 2 days for T-Mobile. The second one was Bolor. So there's also lots of examples. If you go to the Microsoft website for Power Apps, there is lots of case studies that you'll see. This one that was really interesting. Naz, she's a claims officer. She's a front-end user, not a developer. And she was processing claims and she just wanted to organize her work faster. And with Power Apps provisioned on her account, she was able to use the data, probably lots of the forms that she was using. She was able to recognize them and make her job faster and easier, all without any lines of code. And if you thought it's all about citizen development, change, Power Apps can also be used by professional developer. In this case, Nathan, he's a professional developer for many years and an administrator. He was able to write applications that really scale. And Power Apps being a SaaS platform hosted by Microsoft on the cloud, you don't need to worry about the scaling, just like anything else that you'll use on Azure and the other cloud platforms. This is something that scales. So you could develop, even as a professional developer, you could develop components and then call them from Power Apps. We'll see some examples as we move along. So the bottom line is, whether you're a citizen developer or you're a professional developer, you can use it with Power Apps. And this is a question that I keep hearing many times when I talk about Power Apps is, I am a professional developer. I've been in the industry for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years. Why should I care about Power Apps? I'm a .NET developer. I'm a C# developer. I'm an Azure developer. There's lots of opportunity. Like I said, the growth is now happening in two areas. One is AI, another is all these low-code platforms, including Power Apps. And just yesterday, I checked the Naukri. There is about 26,811 job posts for the keyword Power Apps. And that ranges from application developer on to application lead. There is lots of opportunity, 26,000 jobs just in Naukri. I'm sure there are going to be plenty in Monster and the other sites. Many of you might be visiting. And I also wanted to know, what is the freelance market? That's a very good indication on the demand in the market space for this. If you go to Upwork, I just searched that. There's plenty of people who are saying they are individual freelance developers on Power Apps. And some of them are even charging $100 per hour. So that's the kind of demand that's available for Power App developers. So if this has convinced you, then stay with me for the next 20 minutes. Power Apps, what you can do with Power Apps. With Power Apps, you can develop web and mobile applications that run on your PC, Mac, on your browser, iOS, Android, etc. This is often the question that's asked about Power Apps. And a best way for me to explain that is to say there's not. Power Apps is not Xamarin. You use Xamarin to develop cross-platform native applications that run in iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, etc. Power Apps is not for that. Power Apps is something that works only for your employees. Each user of Power Apps needs to have a license that has to be paid. There is a subscription. And you add AI Builder, that's an additional add-on subscription that you'll have to do. So Power Apps, you cannot launch a startup and say, I'll write a mobile application with Power Apps. That's not how it works. We'll see an example in the next slide. But Power Apps is for your employee. We saw how T-Mobile was able to improve their productivity. We saw how Bolor was able to improve their logistics processing. So those are the internal users for which Power Apps is meant. Xamarin is for a very different consumer applications where you want to scale phenomenally. Power Apps is not .NET Core. You don't use it to write. It's not a replacement for cross-platform like .NET Core. And it's certainly not Visual Basic, something that I really love. Even yesterday, there was a thread, Janigram and the other RD. He started on Facebook on his thing about Visual Basic and how Python is now replacing most of the use cases that Visual Basic used to do. And myself and Raj Chaudhary, we being a long-term Microsoft, we are passionate about Microsoft technologies. We kept in defense of Visual Basic. We had done tons and tons of projects on VB, but it's certainly not, Power Apps is certainly not VB. The easiest way I can explain to a non-techie person about what is Power Apps is, Power Apps you think of if you have used Microsoft Access for developing quick applications like your budget for house, etc. Then you can think of Power Apps to be Microsoft Access on the cloud for the cloud era. That's the easiest way you can think of Microsoft Power Apps. This is a quick example that will help you to understand the difference between something like Xamarin and Power Apps. We have seen on what you see on the left hand side is a favorite food app all of us are using during this pandemic more often than ever. We order food, we order groceries with that app. That left hand side app would have been developed on a native platform for mobile or using Xamarin, again native, but for iOS and Android with whatever platform. So you use something like Xamarin for writing that consumer application that will be used by millions and billions of people on front end mobile. On the right hand side is what the food delivery person takes a picture when he or she does a no contact delivery of the package and your house, and as a proof. That application is only going to be used by your employees. So there you use something like Power Apps. Why you don't want to write it in Xamarin? Because these applications undergo tremendous amount of change. Even in the lockdown period, every day the lockdown rules were changed. How do you communicate to your employees? You can't write Xamarin and put it on the iOS store or Android store, wait for it to be approved. It doesn't work. With Power Apps, your app is instantly available for your employees, and you can also work on offline features to store the data, etc. So that is how you do. So your employees use Power App, develop mobile apps or web apps, and your end users or consumers actually use something like Xamarin. So that's the easiest way in which you can think of these two platforms. Now, what is Power Apps? With a lengthy preface, we are coming on to what is Power Platform. It's something that spawns between Office 365, Azure, Dynamics, and all that. There is multiple things like Power BI to Power Automate. I also saw there are sessions on virtual agents later in the day. All this encompass what is Power Platform, and there is more components coming from Microsoft, I'm sure, as days go by. This is where Microsoft invests tremendously. And in this talk, we'll just see Power Apps and AI Builder. The last one, Microsoft Dataverse, that used to be called as Common Data Services. Last week, Microsoft renamed it to Dataverse, just like they renamed Microsoft Flow to Power Automate. They renamed this. Microsoft does this renaming quite often. So in this session, we'll only see Power Apps and AI Builder. Now there's plenty of connectors. The power of Power Platform, if I can say, is on the connectors. Today, an application is useless if it's not able to connect to multiple cloud servers or other data. So it connects with third parties, including Google Drive to Excel to Salesforce to Box and all the Microsoft platforms. It also connects to Bing Search, etc., etc. So there are 350 connectors from Power Automate and Power Apps that you can connect. You can pick up data from one, process it, and then export it to something else or email or put it in social media. You can do whatever you want. So that's the number of connectors. And if you're a professional developer, you can also write these connectors yourself or extend them. And that brings us to the next thing. So if you're a professional developer, you can extend. We'll see how easy it is to develop in Power Apps. But if you're a pro developer, you can use your Visual Studio and develop your compute on Azure functions or Kubernetes, wherever you do your computes, and then expose this functionality to your citizen developers who are using Power Apps. And you can also connect with any of the Azure data service or Office data service like Microsoft Graph or Cosmos and consume this data. There are a lot of controls components that are available in Power Apps out of the box. But if you want to write your own UI, UX controls that your organization uses, then you can look at developing your own controls with Visual Studio and using TypeScript and React. So familiar front-end tools that you're already using to develop your consumer applications, you can actually use it in Power Apps. And you can also follow all your CI/CD pipeline that you're following, GitHub and GitHub Actions and all that. You can continue to follow them in Power Apps. So we'll switch and see how we can do a quick demo. So this is the Power Apps welcome screen. You go to make.powerapps.com and you'll have to provision yourself. If you're on Office 365 and your admin has to provision this for you, the easiest way I will suggest you start learning on Power Platform and start working is to go for the trial. And as you see, even I'm on this trial program right now, so that it's easier for me to write something. I don't need to store it. It just goes away. And you will then set up an environment. I've got two environments. One is my paid. This is the trial one that I'm using. So be careful. Like yesterday, when I was trying to do a recording of this show, I was searching for an app that I developed. I just couldn't find it, and I was getting really tensed up. And it just meant I had to switch the environment. So it's as simple as that, but then we miss it at times. So this is what you do. And remember to provision this. If you're learning, provision it on the US data center so that you have access to things like AI Builder, which we'll talk later. It's coming to India data centers, but it's not available there. So if you're learning, please provision it on yourself on the US data center. It's a bit slow for us from India, but then it's only trial. Your production codes, you'll obviously be deploying it to India data center. So you'll start with applications. There are two ways in which you can start. One is start with the data and the connections. I have a couple of connections that I've connected here. And if you do a new connection, there is plenty of connections. What we talked about, right from Adobe to Google, it's all that. So you can connect to all these data connections. I've connected to an RSS feed, which I'll show in a demo later, to OneDrive for Business, to WordPress, and I've authenticated myself as well. But I'll start with the apps here. So let me go to create. I can start a blank app, and I can also create apps from templates. These are predefined templates, like how we'll do PowerPoint templates, where we have a good looking professionally designed template. You can actually have a professionally developed application available for you just with a click. You just click this and you will be able to provision an application. For example, this case management, all I have to do is say case management and I say create. This application is going to get provisioned for me automatically in the next few minutes. We leave it to get ready. What we'll do is we'll just go to this Canvas app, blank Canvas app. I'll make it a phone app. I'll give a very creative name. People have told me I'm very creative when I give app names. Okay. And we'll always have to give test, dev, demos and all that in our naming convention. So we'll do that. Or the naming gods will get angry about us. So I don't want to infuriate any of them. So this is going to create. Let's see whether the next one has got created. So it wants me to connect to my Salesforce. I don't have access to that. So let me not do this demo. That's a bad idea then. So I've got a Canvas app here. So that kind of works. It looks pretty blank. So let me try to add some controls onto this. So all your familiar controls are here. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do in this thing is I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This is my blog. I write blog at Venkatarangan.com. This is my version on WordPress. So I'm picking up this blog entry for a reason. I'll tell you later. So this is a blog entry with an image, with a text, content and title, all that. So remember this URL, venkatarangan.wordpress.com. So let's go to this Canvas app. What I want to do is I want to write a viewer app for this, pick up this content using the WordPress connector, read it and then show it in my Power Apps. Kind of extremely world-saving application that I'm developing. And I have a text box, I have a HTML text. Okay. I feel like really I'm demoing Visual Basic. It's been, or the first time I did something like this was in 98. Okay, that makes me really old. But then in 98, 99, when Visual Internet came, I demoed it. And that's when I was doing this drag and drop to write the ASP applications. And there's lots of interesting stories that I don't want to get into those now. So, okay, this is the text. I want to pick up the title from here. What I do is I go to this, just like in Excel formula. I go here to the data thing and I just type a formula WordPress, but it's not going to come. I haven't done the connector. Okay, so let me do that first. So let me go to the connector I've created. I want to add to this application. So here is, as we saw, there is plenty of connectors. The one I want to use is WordPress. Visual Internet Story really got me off track. That's a very wonderful product. Okay, so this is going to, I've got the WordPress connector. Now I go back to this formula and then do WordPress dot get IntelliSense. Thanks to IntelliSense, get post. On the site ID, we have copied the site ID and I know the post ID, it's 100. That's why I showed you that post by free book by Chris. Then title. Okay, so that's what I do. Hopefully it should read and bring the title onto here. That should be coming up there. Wow, fantastic. Okay, and I'm going to go to the HTML, do something very similar. WordPress.getPost. If you saw here carefully, there is create post, which means you could also post using the same connector. You could also get site statistics and all that, but let's stick to get post. I haven't tried this plugin is in preview. So I'll do content. You can also do excerpt and so many other things, but let me just use content and pray to all the demo cards. Fantastic. Wow. You guys should clap for me for a demo that works in 1 minute, right? So it's a fantastic world-changing application. Thank you. It's kind of good to hear some feedback because I'm not seeing your face when I'm doing a full screen demo.
Yeah.
So there is this app that we have developed in probably less than a minute or even more faster if I was not going to Visual Internet. So it kind of works and you can do multiple pager, look at all the blog posts, parse it, do all this stuff. So that's fantastic. So that's a quick app we developed. Let's try to do something else. What I've got in my demo next. Okay, cost estimate. Okay, so if I also showed you those templates, right? So let's go back to these templates. And if you see, there are multiple templates I can instantiate. The one we tried, it wanted Salesforce. That's not something we want to talk in a Microsoft event. We want to talk Dynamics. So I know that. So here is a thing that connects to Dynamics data. In this particular example, actually, the data has been exported from Dynamics onto an Excel file, stored in OneDrive for Business, which is what I'm calling. Just for demo case, you can actually connect it to directly to Dynamics, which we'll see in the next demo. So here I've got this is a home development, home improvement, home renovation company that goes to that customers create a new estimate. So let's do this. Let's take this Rajesh that I created yesterday. And I have put in Rajesh, the salesman, the customer data, and then I want to begin an estimate. So the customer is saying, I want to renovate my kitchen. That's where we are spending most of our time. It's a 20 by 20. It's a huge 400 square feet kitchen, and they want to have in their flooring stone. Okay, so whatever reason. Okay, and I can add a photograph. My camera is not going to work because it's now connected to Teams, but you can otherwise. And this is a sample application. You can just provision called cost estimate, and the templates you can choose and do it in a few minutes and you get provision. And I'll do a thing, and then it wants my signature. Okay, so that's not my signature, but you can pretend it to be my signature, and I'll submit this data. Now this data is going to go and get stored into my OneDrive for Business. If you don't believe me, I'm not going to be doing this. Okay, so let me go to OneDrive for Business and then show you this data that's stored. Templates, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, in this Excel is where all this floor plans, the flooring types that you have got, the photographs for it, the URLs to the photographs. This is the signature that I uploaded now. And it just takes a bit of time to come back here. And all the customer names, everything gets stored here. And the photographs you actually upload goes into this thing. So it's extremely easy. You just want a quick and dirty application for your employees to collect data and then bring them back instead of giving them emailing or put it in Teams. You can actually write this Power Apps and have them send data. And it's extremely easy. You can start customizing this. You can open this app in go to your app thing and then open this thing in the edit mode. And then you can figure out how this app was developed, how this connector works. And then you can start learning very quickly. The easiest way to learn Power Apps is to create apps with these templates and then start reverse engineering them. Okay, so the next example I want to show, this is an app that connects to Dynamics, as you can see here, and it picks up Dynamics data. And it shows a beautiful UI. The other day I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a large department in one of the large consulting company. They are using for a lot of their Fortune 100 companies who are using Dynamics for departments to use Power Apps for the front end, because it's easier to develop front end in Power Apps than you can do that in Dynamics. And that's when I also got reminded of an old story, and the organizers probably have to stop me when I have so many stories after my time. This is about 5 or 6 years back for a large financial service company in the US. They were migrating from Lotus nodes onto SharePoint. And this was a multi-year project, multi-million-dollar project. We were not complaining because we were able to put tens of people onto this project, both on-site and offshore. And it's multi-million-dollar project. Let me leave it there. So they had about 8,000 employees, about 4,000, 5,000 databases and applications on Lotus nodes. And we were migrating it with a migrator tool. In one of the area we found very difficult, we were spending a lot of time. The data easily came to SharePoint, or rather relatively easier with the migrating tool. But the apps that individual departments or small teams have created in Lotus nodes, kind of a P2P fashion, that was proving very difficult to bring it to SharePoint. If something like Power Apps was available, we couldn't have migrated, but recreating those apps would have been a lot more easier for us and a lot more pleasurable experience for the users. So that's what you can do with Power Apps, in this case, Dynamics. Okay, so we saw you have to provision, we saw WordPress connector, a quick app, we saw a demo app connecting, doing cost estimate to OneDrive for Business, we saw an app that connected to Dynamics, quite a lot of surface in few minutes. We'll switch gears. The next few minutes, I'll talk about AI Builder and then we can wrap up. AI Builder is the way, is the easier kind of drag and drop way of you can do AI. Many of us want to do AI, but we are not intelligent enough, or star developers or data scientists, or any AI or machine learning book you pick up, they start with statistics and I go to sleep. So if you're somebody like me, then AI Builder is the best way for you to start with doing AI. And you can also tell you're an AI engineer now. It's on top of Azure AI. It uses the same scalable Azure AI as the backend, so you don't need to worry. There are 4 scenarios that you can use pretty much AI today in Azure AI or in AI Builder, which is to process your documents, vision, which is images, prediction, language. We'll see them in little detail. First things you need to know before you do anything on AI is there are pre-built models and then custom models. And these are fancy terms. They are nothing much. Pre-built models are ready-made models that Microsoft have trained on top of that data. For example, with Bing or other services, they've trained on millions and billions of images for image recognition. So that's a pre-built model that Microsoft gives, which you can just consume. Custom model is a model that you all, again, Microsoft has written the model, but the training has to be done by you, but with your own data, because you have some confidential data like healthcare, etc. You want to use your own training data. That's what you do with a custom AI model. Where you can use custom AI models, you can use to predict your business outcomes with historic data and then see what's going to be the future outcomes. You can do form processing, take an image and process data like invoice, etc. You can do object detection from screenshots taken from a video or images. You can do entity attraction from large amount of text, and you can do classification of text and mine insights. And in the pre-built AI models, there are about 10 of them, and Microsoft keeps adding more. Pretty much the common ones are invoice, receipt processing, text recognition, translation using Bing Translate and all that. These are pre-built models. We'll see an example in a minute. So I've got about 3 examples, and then we can do these summaries. So here, let me start with the example first and then tell you. This is, again, in this case, I've used an RSS connector to read from my blog. I've been blogging for almost like 15 years, about 3,000 blogs. I want to know the sentiments of each and every blog. Am I being very pessimistic about the world, or am I being positive? So in the last few blogs that I processed with the sentiment analysis, it says it's positive. Again, super intelligence, a movie I saw, it's positive. So anything you talk about social media, last week I gave a talk, that's negative because social media always makes you sad. And if, in this case, a TV serial I've written is mixed. So you can use the sentiment analysis to actually process your comments that comes in your social media. Where do I go and use this? I go to AI Builder. And like I said, if you want to provision AI Builder, it's only on the US data center right now. So remember that. And you can look at the models that I've already created, or you can start creating your own model. In this case, let me just show you how you can do sentiment. Sentiment, you start with this and then you process and you provision this. I'm not going to be doing that. I'll do object detection. That's where a training data happens. So this is the custom AI model, and this is your pre-trained model. Sentiment analysis, what you saw right now doing the sentiment for my blog, or used with sentiment analysis. I'm going to be doing this custom detection now. So let me call it again creative names. I'll call food samples. Remember, each and every food that you wanted to identify, because it's a custom training that you have to do, you have to have at least 15. If you have hundreds of pictures, then it's fantastic. Food sample, let me do it. And it's going to create this, provision this model based on an object detection model that's already been written. And I need training data for this that I'll show. In the lockdown, rasam became a very popular food in South India because people are saying it's immune boosting. Actually, we eat it every day, but then when you say immune boosting, it actually becomes more favorite food. So, and my wife started experimenting with different types of rasams, and some I picked up for training from the internet, but pretty much most of the other ones were made in our house. So I have about 19 rasam pictures, and I have about 16 pop-up pictures. So I want to build a model that should recognize photograph food items, whether they are pop-ups or rasam. Again, world changing. So let me go here. Okay, this takes time. What I'll just show you is the steps, and you can try it out later. First, the system has to know that I'm detecting 2 objects. Called rasam and pop-ups. You can give it any name. You can give as many food objects, but remember, you need to have those pictures for training. And then you need to upload images. I'll just upload 1 image. Okay, not the testing data. From the training data, I'll upload a puppet. Okay, so I've uploaded a puppet image. Now I'll have to tag it. Tagging is the process where I train the system that this is a puppet image. The system doesn't know because it's a custom model. Okay, so I go to the next stage. I'm going a bit fast, but it's fairly very easy for you to follow. And I need to tag this. Okay, you can be a little flexible. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to be like in Photoshop, extremely careful. Okay, I've done tagging. Now, if I do for the next 30 images, 29 images, the system is going to allow me to go to the next step and train this model. I'm not going to be doing that. Let's use the already trained model and see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go AI Builder models. Let me open up. I actually have it opened here. So India Foods is the model that I already pre-trained, and I can use this model to develop this application, which is what you saw the which we'll demo. And then I can do a quick test. I can upload a testing data here and see whether it's able to determine whether it's a rasam or a puppet. Okay, so let me give this and see what happens. Image doesn't meet. Oh, that's interesting. Let me give this puppet. Okay, the system is going to come back with the sense of accuracy that it feels confidence it's a puppet. And then it's also going to tell me what is it. Hopefully it should tell me puppet. Come on, please save me in front of my 50 of my friends. Okay. If it doesn't work, you'll have to believe me, it told me puppet yesterday. Wow, 70% is puppet. Okay, I can then start. Let me try a dosa, what happens. Rasam it's going to determine. I've got this 2 dosas. And that's a noodle dosa for my son. Okay. System, it will be interesting if it says a rasam, right? A rasam is generally given free if you go to hotels. They don't charge you, but they do charge for a dosa. Okay, like I said, this is coming from the US data center. That's why it's a little slower. And probably a lot of people are trying out food items today.
I think the AI model is not available in other regions as of yet.
Yes, it is not. It's not provisioned. It's in preview. Anyways, so puppets, it thinks both the dosas to be puppets because my training data I gave just was about 15 photographs. If I had done about hundreds of photographs, then it will still not tell me it's a dosa, but it will tell me it's not a puppet or a rasam. It's something else. You're trying to fool me. But that's how AI systems work. Even if somebody professionally develops an AI model, this is how it's going to work. So this is AI Builder. Okay, let's do 2 quick demos and then we'll wrap up. This is the sentiment analysis. We'll also see text recognition. So I took a picture yesterday of a newspaper column. Okay. And I wanted to recognize. Many of us have this challenge of we taking photographs of a lot of things, but we want to have this data, like the example I show of the large logistics shipping company, which wanted to extract data from the photographs they took. And here, so yeah, the system is able to recognize it's with irritating marketing calls, and it's able to recognize, yes, I'm looking for one, all the text, and you can loop through and get all the text. There is a control in Power Apps to do that also for you. So it's pretty easy. So it's kind of recognized. And these two, the sentiment analysis and the text recognition, are pre-built model, whereas the food one we saw was actually trained by myself. Okay, so that's a builder in a quick nutshell. And kind of wrapping up, there are new features in Power Apps. And I had to change the slide just now with Jeff Tepper's talk that he's now saying what was 75 million a couple of weeks back is 115 million daily active users. It's probably the most fastest growing Microsoft product, if I can recall, Microsoft Teams. So if you want to develop applications in Teams, that's where most of us are spending our time now. You can look at Power Apps to develop these applications, and then it'd be called as personal apps or team-wise apps. And the other day I was playing around with a mixed reality. I couldn't demo this today because the camera I know would be used by the teams. But in mixed reality, you can actually have something like HoloLens if you have, or even without HoloLens, you can actually, in the same cost estimate, you can go to a customer place or give the HoloLens to the customer, and he or she can see his place and then see how the flooring is going to look on this face. So those kind of mixed reality applications you can develop with Power Apps, again with no code, with mixed reality component. And if you have convinced you in the last 25 plus minutes that Power Apps is something that's worth spending your time and you want to learn more and by a better person from the team, then you can look at Microsoft Learn, which is free, available. You can just go to aka.ms/D365 Fundamentals LP, D365 Fundamentals LP, and then this course is available for you. It's a 1.5 hour course, free. You can learn about Power Apps. You can learn a bit about BI and integrating with all this data. and you want to play around yourself and get a free provisioned account and play around with Power Apps, the best place to go is ak.ms/PA test environment, Power Apps test environment. So just remember this URL. It's a starting point where there's plenty of information on how to learn Power Apps, a lot of videos, a lot of materials, and you can also provision a free account and then go from there. And with that, we come to the close of this keynote. Thanks to all the organizers and to the sponsors. And if you'd like to continue this conversation on low code, no code, future of software development, follow me at tncv.me or at Venkatarangan. And thank you so much. If there is questions and I have time, I can take them on chat or you can ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venkat sir. That was an amazing session. We loved it. And yes, the possibilities are endless there. And I'm really amazed to see how the transition has moved. And I can relate with you 100% with the Visual Basic stuff, because I actually in my college days built an application using Visual Basic and Access for a college, for a computer institute. I created their student management software, and they actually ended up using it for 13 years. So
now everybody in the call will know that you're not so young that you look like.
I'm not. I'm absolutely not. So yeah, the power of chemicals these days, right? What they can do.
Yeah, and the Facebook conversation Janaki started. People have been telling the number of Oracle apps that are still running with Visual Basic as the front end is amazing. I just wish all of them moved to Power Apps, but then that's a different for a different day.
Yeah.
So, are there any questions?
There were a few. So one of them was about if we can build a whole video conferencing application using Power Apps.
You might want to do, but you don't want to pay $50 per user for that in Power Apps and make them all your employees. The best way for you to use it, there are Azure services for video calls and conference calls, and also from all the other third-party cloud vendors and specialized vendors. That's what you want to use for video conferencing in your own application. Microsoft will be more than happy if you build it in Power Apps.
Yeah, and from Mohammed, there is one more question about if SharePoint. He wants to know about the SharePoint if it can be used as a self-service portal integrated with Dynamics 365 F&O, where the license optimization is required. So I believe
my SharePoint is a bit dusty nowadays, so I leave it to SharePoint talks later. But you can develop portals in Power Apps, and that you can pretty much call wherever you want, like even in Teams as a tab, etc. So that's possible. But the SharePoint connection, I'm not familiar. I can look it up for you. Thank you.
Yeah, but you would want to go that route. You would rather use Power Apps. Like if he wants to avoid and manage their licensing for Dynamics 365, you already showed that you can directly connect to the data in Dynamics 365 and build that particular interface in Power Apps, because it's a little bit more user friendly and you only give them what is necessary. So I think that's the route
that you are starting now, that you expect it to be service long-term. Start with Power Apps if you already have it provisioned in your. See, the thing is, are your organization subscribing to Power Apps? That's the first hurdle. If that's crossed, then I will recommend you do it with Power Apps, because this is a platform Microsoft is heavily investing. One thing, because I have a couple of gray hairs, I've learned is always invest on a platform that the company is also investing, not on. I love Visual Basic, but that if I'm going to program a new project today on VB.NET, that's not a wise suggestion. So I should be investing on a platform. Similar things with the competing platforms. Invest on something where the company or the people, community behind it is investing. There's tons of Python projects. I work a lot nowadays on Python. So when you pick up a Python package, choose the one that's active, not a project that's 10 years old and then complain this project doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
Very, very good advice there, sir. I think that's all the questions we had. Thank you so much for your session. It was amazing. Loved the demos. They were really awesome. I'm sure it must have taken you a good amount of time to prepare those. So
yes, when I finished recording yesterday, what I sent you early morning, it was 1 o'clock.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And the thing is, I forget to unpause. When I pause something in the recording, I forget to unpause, then talk for 20 minutes and then realize I haven't recorded. That's going to be my catchphrase for the pandemic.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I don't want to
Yes.
take time for the other speakers. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day today.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Venkat.